times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times. Though we've broken our vows. Keep singing. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are. We're going to do a round here. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are. This side. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Good morning. Welcome to Sunday morning worship service at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois. I am Chris Cable, a member of your Board of Trustees. We are so glad you are here, whether you're present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It is so good to be together. We welcome you to our church and invite you to get to know us better after the service. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys, while holding ourselves in covenant through our shared 7 principles. The mission of DuPage UU Church is to gather as an inclusive community to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world toward fairness, love, and compassion. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. If you are online, we invite you to greet each other through the chat, and if you are present here, I invite you to turn to someone you did not come with and greet them with a wave and a good morning greeting.
I light this chalice for the first source of our living, tradition, that draws from direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a wall of the spirit and an openness to the forces which created and upholded life.
Thank you, Max. Good morning on this very rainy morning. Welcome to this place of love, of communal flourishing. We enter this worship space to open our hearts, to expand our minds, and to see the sacred within each other. Come, let us worship together.
I invite you to join me now in our shared covenant. We come together to affirm our relationship with one another, our shared commitment to our Unitarian Universalist principles, and to our DuPage UU Church community. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous in relationship with each other so that we might transform ourselves and the world.
Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships we have with each other, our world, and creation. Each week we share our joys and concerns. This week, our flowers are from Anna Aguilar Duncan in memory of her father-in-law, Frank Duncan. We have another joy from James, Oliver, and Hugo, who celebrated their 1-year anniversary of their engagement yesterday on September 16th. Congratulations. And our hearts are with those in both Morocco and Libya, in the communities impacted both by the earthquake and by the heavy flooding. As climate change continues to happen, human lives are often suffering because of it. May we hold these people in our hearts, and may we continue to work towards a climate that is sustainable for all of us. Whether our cares or our joys are shared publicly here or held in our hearts, this community cares for one another. We love each other and wish for each other's flourishing. Know that we are here for each of you. I invite you today to please share this reading with me as a meditative prayer. I would ask that you please read the items in italics that are also highlighted in yellow. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. And maybe all of our livers too.
It is time to gather. My message today is about 3 questions. Leo Tolstoy asked these 3 questions in the form of a parable 120 years ago. This story asks the same 3 questions, written and illustrated by John Muth. There once was a young boy named Nikolai, who sometimes felt certain, sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. And Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, then I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Well, Nikolai's friends considered his first question, and then Sonia, the heron, spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Well, Gogol, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, "You will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention." And then Pushkin, the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, "You can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide what things to do." For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head. So Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling into the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. And Nikolai thought some more, and then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, said Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. Then the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends, and he knew that they were trying their best to help him answer the questions, but their answers didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought. I will ask Leo, the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers that I'm looking for. So Nikolai hiked high up into the mountains where the old turtle lived alone. And when Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Well, Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. And then he went on with his digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. And the turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly, and rain burst from the darkened clouds. And as they moved toward the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. And the storm raged on, banging at the doors and windows, and the panda woke up. Where am I, she asked. And where is my child? So the boy ran out of the cottage and down the path, and the roar of the storm was deafening. And pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran further into the forest. And there he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. And the little panda was wet and scared but alive. And Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. And then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, and all was well in the world. And the panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. And at that moment, Sonia, Gogol, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikola felt great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time, and the old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cry for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. And the most important one at the moment was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. And the most important ones were the panda and her baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember, then, that there is only one important time, and that time is now. And the most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing to do is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. And this is why we are here." Let's sing to the children.
Giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many gifts we are given by this community. Your contribution supports the programs and operations of DuPage UU Church. Giving is also how we live our values in the world. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization that is nominated by the congregation and selected by the special offerings team. During September, our special offering will benefit the Alive Center of Naperville, nominated by DUUC member Dean Reschke, who was a founding member. Their mission is to be a teen-led, teen-driven center focused on empowering the youth of today to become the impassioned, resilient leaders of tomorrow. As a nonprofit organization, they offer free drop-in hours after school and over the summer, as well as a myriad of programs, classes, and events designed to build confident and resilient teens. For more information about the Alive Center, visit their website at www.alivecenter.org. The morning's offering to support the work of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church and the Alive Center is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude. Our reading this morning is from Seth Goldenberg's book, Radical Curiosity, Questioning Commonly Held Beliefs to Imagine Flourishing Futures. The types of problems we face can no longer be satisfied with familiar answers. They demand the original thinking that begins with essential questions. When curiosity is translated into an inquiry-based methodology, it has the power to transform the way we live. When did we surrender our claim to original thinking? When did we become disinterested in generating new knowledge? Can we pull curiosity back from the brink of extinction? I believe that we can, but to save curiosity from extinction will require that we adopt an appetite not just for questioning, but for radical questioning. The word radical was borrowed in the 14th century from the Latin radicalis, meaning root. Radical questioning is necessary because it is the roots, it is the essential foundations of today's problems that need to be excavated and interrogated. The more fundamental the question, the more fertile the ground for imagining. We spend too much time on the surface, scurrying like frantic mice from one transaction to the next and avoiding the deeper questions. We need to bravely embrace the inquiries that have the potential to reorient, rehabilitate, and regenerate the complex challenges that we are confronted with. Our contemporary moment is ripe with opportunities to reimagine our world. And now, please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
If you've ever spent time with children, you know that the questions are constant. What, where, when, why, how, and who? If you've ever had the opportunity to parent, grandparent, or simply be in proximity to children, you've likely experienced these questions, right? And it makes sense. Children are learning about their world, about what it means to be human and who they are. They ask questions to learn the stories about all these things, to make meaning of their lives. They ask hard questions, and they ask easy questions. And they ask ridiculous and persistent questions. For some questions, the answers we give are straightforward. What do you want for dinner? Other questions have more complex answers. When our dear friend and semi-grandparent to my children, Mr. Jim, died very suddenly, the question of what happens when you die came along. As a parent, this can be a frightening question. Death is not something we like to think about, even as adults, but moreover, there's not an actual answer. We can come at it biologically, but we actually don't know what happens after death. There really is no definitive answer. Luna, my oldest, asked this question a few days after Mr. Jim died. And my first thought was to share all the different ways that people think about death. But Luna wasn't asking about the many ways that the world's religions view death. They wanted to know what I thought, not the mighty philosophers and theologians. Before I answered, though, I realized that I was curious about what they thought. We had never had a conversation about death before. How did this tiny being think about the end of our lives? As I was thinking about this conversation from many years ago, I began to wonder when the shift happens from asking questions to answering them. I think that our whole educational system is set up to take out the question-asking skills from our children and turn them into question-answering robots. What is standardized testing if not making sure one answers are correct and one has a certain type of information? And this skill translates into most of our adulthood occupations, right? After all, we are hired because we have a skill set to answer questions for a particular problem or need. We read data, do research, or gain skills to provide answers to our employers. Answers are good, don't get me wrong. Answers provide us with assurance. Answers give us stories that explain who we are and why we are here. But so many answers are actually more subjective than our society treats them. Not only that, but many answers are incomplete from one person's perspective. If we ask ourselves why we go to church or why we go to a Unitarian Universalist church, there are likely to be similarities in our answers, but they will likely be more diverse than we expect. And the answer is likely to change over time. Why you came here initially is going to be different 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and even 20 years from now. We have so overvalued the skill of question answering that we've lost the skill of question asking. And even worse, because we value question answering over question asking, when we don't have an answer, we often assume the answer based on the limited information that we have. And assuming, well, you all know what they say about assuming, now don't you? Within our Unitarian Universalist context, I find this conversation of question answering versus question asking to be a bit of a conundrum. How many of you have heard remarks, comments, or even jokes about Unitarian Universalism as the place to ask your questions about faith and life rather than the place to get your answers? Yes, yes. Then there's truth in this statement. We do very much welcome questions. We have no doctrine that you must agree with. We welcome the exploration of ideas, and we fully expect that our members, and let's just face it, all people, will change their minds or evolve their ideas about their faith or about life constantly throughout their lifetimes based upon what we experience and who we interact with. But in UU congregations, I find the asking of questions is far less used in practice than the answering of questions. Furthermore, in UU congregations, we have a lot of negative answers for our questions. When asked if we believe in God, for instance, many of us will answer with an outright no. A no that leaves no room for another thought. Or something maybe along the lines of, well, I certainly don't believe in the bearded white man in the clouds. They're not bad answers, but they're incomplete. They don't actually tell us what you do believe in. Additionally, the negativity in the response can also make those with the traditional answers feel out of place and unwelcome in a space that is unique for welcoming multiple perspectives. Our claim to fame might just be our pluralist congregations. But the answers to this question miss the fact that the question itself is poorly written. After all, what does one mean when one says God? Is it an anthropomorphic, a human-like God, or spirit, like the concept of chi in Eastern religions? Or is it multi-theistic, many gods? The question is faulty, and the answers are as well. And going deeper, we realize that the question expects an answer. That is, we're expected to say yes or no. There's no in between. What happens if we don't know? What if, rather than answer, we ask another question? What if we root ourselves in curiosity rather than answers? Rooting ourselves in curiosity means that we dig more deeply into the questions themselves, to explore what lies at the center. Rooting ourselves in curiosity means that we engage with each other, centering our relationships that we are in and exploring together the possible answers in the hopes of finding a more complete truth. The irony we find in an age of answers is that we find ourselves surrounded by problems with no answers. In fact, we have so many problems facing us in this technologically advanced, climate-devastating, fascism-rising, almost post-pandemic era that we can't even begin to think about answers. All we seem to do is throw information, quick and easy answers at the problems in the hopes that the next answer will be the quick and easy fix we are looking for. But what if answers became the question? What if, in answering a question, we asked other questions, more questions? When Steve Cooper, our Director of Religious Education, and I sat down in January to think about the coming program year, this year that we're in now, we began by asking ourselves questions. What is church in this almost post-pandemic era? Why do people want church? Why do we do religious education? How do we keep our children and youth after they graduate? How can we better serve our adults? How can we create the community that you all are asking for? How can we make people's lives meaningful? How can we help them find purpose? Easy questions, right? But out of these questions came even more questions. And there came some possible answers, but see, the answers were not themselves complete. Things are changing at speeds that are impossible to keep up with. Our answers are so far what you see on a Sunday morning schedule. But here's the thing. They could be wrong. Steve and I, and now Tina as well, don't have all the answers. In fact, we're constantly asking even more questions. We're returning to the roots, as Kat eloquently read from Seth Goldenberg's book, Radical Curiosity, returning to the roots to ask more questions, to dig deeper, to get more information. What if? What if we did this all the time? What if we all answered questions with more questions? What big problems might we fix if we asked more questions rather than gave more answers? What if we cultivated our humility, found honor and pride in not knowing the answer, in the idea of constantly seeking new ideas and thoughts, rather than in knowing? Luna asked me that day, what happens when you die? I could have given my answer, my very philosophical mix of Taoist and religious naturalism on death and possible afterlife. An answer that's not really an answer and certainly has no certainty in it. But instead, I asked Luna what they thought happened. Luna's 5-year-old response was everything. It was actually the answer I needed to heal the grief that I had over Jim's death. I think, Luna said, that Mr. Jim's spirit lives in one of the trees here with us. He will always be here. When I let go of the need to answer, I was answered. What marvelous and mysterious things might we learn if we question instead of answer? What global problems might we solve if we explore and encourage unknowing instead of knowing? How might we change the world if we root ourselves in curiosity? Please rise in body or spirit and sing hymn number 112, Do You Hear With Me? let us leave this place holding our questions, asking our questions, knowing that our questions are probably even more important than our answers. Hold that spirit, root yourself in that curiosity, that we might all come together to find a more complete truth for a more just world. May it be so.
And now please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you.